Today I will be presenting on the variety of orchids. So orchids are a very diverse family. There are 850 different genera within the Orchidaceae family, which equates to about 28,000 species across the planet. It's 6 to 11% of all seed species worldwide, and it's one of the two most abundant families along with Asteraceae, which is the daisy family. It's not well known that vanilla is also a type of orchid. The orchids can range in size. The smallest orchid is approximately 2 centimeters long, and the largest can weigh more than 1 ton. Orchids can grow in trees as epiphytes, on the ground, or even underground. This diversity is thought to be stimulated by a cooling climate, but many orchids are still being discovered, classified, or named. Approximately 25% of all orchids are yet to be fully classified, which means they haven't been given a scientific name or their distribution isn't known. So we have orchid over to the side, which looks like a little bear, and the loss of orchids would have some significant effects on biodiversity, as it's one of the most threatened flowering families worldwide. Most orchids have a narrow geographic range, and most are in decline. So orchids rely on fungi for germination and to provide nutrients to the plant, and they also provide medicinal benefits. They're a huge portion of the floral industry, and they are used in many traditional customs. So the loss of orchids would have significant effects the world over. This is an example of a very rare orchid. It's one of the rarest orchid species of the world. It's called the Rothschild slipper. Even though it was discovered quite a few years ago, there's still a mystery around how pollination occurs. Species does not germinate until it's 15 years old, and it only lives in a small pocket of Asia in the Kalimantan region. So in Australia, there are 16,000 orchid species, and 90% of these are endemic. So 90% are found nowhere else in the world, and 50 of these are on the IUCN Red List as critically endangered, including 23 that were recently updated. Many are still undiscovered, and mysteries still lie around pollination. The DCCEEW has a recovery plan for the 15 most threatened orchids, but these only cover the orchids in Southeast Australia, mostly in Victoria. So there are many threats to orchids. These include grazing, particularly by cattle, kangaroos, and rabbits, and trampling by humans and vehicles. They're also prone to stochastic events like natural disasters, since most live in a very narrow distribution. One bushfire or flood could potentially wipe out entire species. They are prone to droughts as well. In a drought, they won't produce seeds, therefore they won't germinate new seedlings. They are also affected by climate change. So these are some more examples of orchids. This is the ghost orchid on the left. It's found in South America, and it produces quite creepy shadows at night. Since it also has little faces, which make it a little creepier. On the right is an orchid that looks like a little dainty little insect coming to feed on a leaf, but this is all the flower. You also get some very interesting varieties, like this bird orchid, which has evolved to mimic a bird, and this flying duck orchid, which looks like a flying duck. So this isn't by chance. Each orchid has evolved to look like a specific pollinator in order to attract that pollinator. This could be bees, wasps, beetles, ants, or butterflies. This enthusiastic cheerleading looking orchid evolved to attract bees. And this is another bee orchid. This orchid has evolved to look like a bee itself. So bees will come along, they will see this orchid, think it's another bee, and try to mate with the flower, and then leave with the pollen all over it. So also have very interesting designs, like this naked man flower on the left. We also have this monkey orchid, There are quite a few different monkey orchids. They're all very interesting. You have this white egret orchid, and you also have this interesting looking orchid that looks like it has a little bowler hat on. Um, so what we can do to help orchids is raise awareness of the status of orchids worldwide and take part in citizen science to locate orchids to update their distribution. You can do this through portals like iNaturalist, and this increased awareness of their distribution and improved distribution data would improve likelihood of funding and sponsorship opportunities. So in summary, orchids are diverse, beautiful plants that need our help. They are one of the most numerous families on the planet, but they are also one of the most threatened. Thousands of varieties exist in Australia and more are still being discovered, but most orchids have a limited distribution and more research needs to be done on orchids. Thank you for joining us. Hope you found this engaging.